Welcome to another exciting and informative episode of the Entreprenudist Podcast. I'm your host, Randolph Love III, and we do have another business owner on the podcast today. But before we bring them up, I want to remind you that this episode is brought to you by Wolf Strongholds, a wealth growth and protection company when it comes to retirement planning, when it comes to life insurance, when it comes to estate planning, when it comes to employee benefits. If your plan ain't Wolf, your plan ain't strong. If you are a business owner that wants you and your employees to retire higher than you would have prior, make sure you visit ShieldWolfStrong.com or call or text +1 904 822 4262. Now to our guests. Manny Skevofilax, and if I said it wrong, he's going to correct me, is a consultant, speaker, and author that helps business owners maximize profits and overcome growth challenges to achieve financial freedom. An expert in strategic planning, financial statement analysis, and business operations, he's been achieving extraordinary outcomes for his clients since 2003. Manny, thank you for coming on the Entreprenudist Podcast.
Randolph, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. The pleasure is all mine. You've been doing this for a long time. Is there nothing that you know now that you wish that you knew when you first started?
Oh, man, you're starting off with a banger. I would have picked a different field. My field, I would have stayed in my business, and back then we called it computer information systems. I would have foregone trying to become an expert in finance.
What reason?
I believe that we do not get the quality of information that we think we're getting. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a lot of okie doke that comes with the information that we get.
Got it. And then because we're making decisions based off that information, if the information is skewed, it hurts us.
You have hit the nail right on the head, sir. Mm-hmm. That's my opinion.
So what's an example of something that might be skewed?
The statistics that come out that the government tells us about gross domestic product, hiring, payrolls, economic growth, all of those statistics are constantly revised. And early on, I was relying on those statistics to try to be informed and be able to give valuable recommendations to non-finance business owners, right? And then as time went on, I felt that the amount of revisions that they were doing to these statistics, you really couldn't hang your hat on and look somebody in the eye like a man and know that this information was accurate.
And that's very transparent and self-aware of you. And I like that. And that's actually the premise of this podcast, where real entrepreneurs and business owners bear all, right? Now, and it sounds like that probably led to why a part of your philosophy. I know a part of your philosophy is bootstrapping your business is the best way to go. Is that realization that you had a part of why you encourage and really stand on the soapbox when it comes to bootstrapping?
Well, that's part of it, Randolph. My parents were born in Greece on an island in the middle of nowhere. They immigrated to the United States after World War II. They didn't know each other on the island. They met here. So I grew up, working in a restaurant. That's what Greek people did. And, my folks didn't have any access to capital. They couldn't get loans. They were just not available. And they were poor. So they had a very different view of money than their son, who's born in the United States and has a different set of rules here. I've never seen poverty. When I go to the grocery store, there's always food from the floors to the ceiling. It's a different thing. So they were the ones that started that indoctrination process. They were afraid of borrowing money.
So, and they say tradition comes from what's that saying? Where tradition is born out of necessity, right?
Yeah.
And it sounds like what you're saying is that necessity was they had to have that fear mindset based off of where they came from.
Yeah. The funny thing is, I started at the bottom of a bank. You know, I went from the restaurant business into training. I worked 10 years and became a banker. And I learned that from the inside, how it all works, which has been a tremendous learning experience. But I watched a lot of business owners here in America use borrowed money to their detriment because it was so easy to borrow. They're like, bad month, I'll borrow. You know, lost the contract, use the credit card. You know what I mean? Cash crunch. There was always that Band-Aid. And there's an old banker saying, Randolph, that was taught to me. No one ever went out of business from having too much debt. It was the inability to service that debt that caused the calamity. I was like, you know, so that's where that came from. Bootstrap, you know what you got, go slow, make sure you're profitable, and be prepared for a rainy day.
So what are some of the growth mistakes that these entrepreneurs run into?
Great question. In my experience, Randolph, number one on the list is setting unreasonable growth goals. You wake up one day and you decide, I'm going to double the size of my company this year, right? And you don't think about two things. Number one, do you have the capital to be able to double the size of your business? And do you have the systems in place so you don't burn out your team? You know, so that would be mistake number one. Mm-hmm. Mistake number two, and I still suffer from this, although I have gotten better over the years, is something, I didn't make it up. I learned this. It's called shiny new toy syndrome. And, you know, you make a plan, and then all of a sudden something comes into your field of view and you get distracted because it's a shiny new toy. And you don't finish what you planned. So those are the two big ones that I found. And I found, a host of them during my career. I'll give you one more. This one is a hot button. So I work with business owners. They never want to stop once a month and review their financial performance at all because it's boring. And, I counter with, you've got to stop. Well, I don't have time for that. And I got, customers to deal with, employees to deal with. Let's take a look at that financial statement, see what your results say. That's what I was trained to do. Financial statement analysis. That's what working in a bank taught me. Let's see, did you make money this month? Did you make what you thought you were going to make? These are all key things. And these business owners find excuses on why they don't want to do it. And that's the first recommendation that I make is that we have a 1 hour meeting every month to review the financial statements so we can see what's up and catch any negative trends before they take hold.
Oh yeah, a chief financial officer is definitely supposed to be that person that makes the business owner stop. Now, are you a financial officer that works with one company, or are you what they would call like a fractional or an outsourced chief financial officer?
Yeah, I am an outsourced chief financial officer. So I work with about a dozen companies, and I've been doing this for the last 22 years.
What made you decide to do the outsource instead of aligning yourself with one company?
Great question. The opportunity presented itself. I went from restaurant business. I made a career change from the restaurants at age 29. Went into the bank, spent 10 years in the bank, learned a lot, great teachers and mentors. And then I wanted to do my own thing. And I like the variety, Randolph. I have client relationships that are in all different types of industries, which is the fun part. And you're dealing with all different types of personalities. And if you don't like each other, you just move on. It's very, there's a lot of pluses for it. Those are the main ones.
Oh yeah, and I imagine for the business owner that can be valuable. I know one of my favorite sharks on Shark Tank is Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful. Now, he does have an interesting way of talking to people, but I'm one of those people, I don't care what you say, I pay attention to your actions, and he's actually a lot more likable on his YouTube channel. And one thing that he was asked on his YouTube channel, they asked him, they said, hey, how are you able to sell your educational company for over $1 billion compared to the other people? And what he said was, well, he used to be in the cat food industry. And in the cat food industry, they had two different engines is what they call it. And basically it was a beef base and a tuna base. And what they would do is that made the manufacturing so easy and seamless, because all they would do is put different seasonings and different toppings on the two different engines. And that allowed them to be very efficient, very effective, and have multiple different SKUs at different price points. And when he got into the education industry, what he discovered was people were spending so much money and time making a whole new math course and a whole new English course. He said, why don't we keep the same math course, the same English course, and just license different characters, different Disney characters, because he did education for kids, license different Disney characters to do the same thing. And that allowed him to have so many different products without spending so much money and time, because that's something that he learned from that other industry and applied it to this industry. Have you found situations like that working with these different multiple industries to where you say, hold up, they do it like this in this industry, you can do it like this in your industry as well?
Yes. First of all, thanks for educating me. I did not know that about his story. That's very interesting. So you do share, what we call best practices. You try to help them become more efficient because you have a different perspective. I'm an outsider and I'm looking inside. Whereas the expression, I think, is sometimes you got your face pressed up against the glass and you can't get the big picture. So that's the benefit that I have. I'm actually sitting back looking and I'm able to make inferences. But it's interesting because I'll make recommendations and they'll say, I can't do that. That's not market. That won't work. But I'll still keep them coming, because I have an outside perspective.
Mm-hmm. And, a good thing about dealing with visionaries is sometimes you can tell that visionary something today and it won't track, but a year later, it might apply to the new vision. And they'll remember that you were the one that shared it with them.
Yeah, that's well said.
So I know as a CFO, y'all don't typically get into the weeds per se. You look at things from a 30,000 foot overview and you plan for the future. What are some ways that a business owner can increase the value of their company utilizing what you know?
Yeah, that's a great point that you make. In my experience, Randolph, the first thing would be take a look at your business and see what is the most profitable thing you do. I'm keeping it very simple. And do more of it, and look to take the complexity out of the business. And then the most important thing you can do is build that business so it doesn't require you in it anymore. That's when it really becomes a business. So if I may, I have a job, okay? I don't really have a business. My business, PORTAL CFO Consulting, cannot run without me. I have a job. But there are other people that have evaluated, analyzed, made the decisions where they might have 9 outsourced CFOs in their company and one of them's the owner of that company doesn't need to be there. So that would be the big one, So look at what, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Look at what you're selling. Check your profitability, because as human beings, we like to do more than one thing. And business owners are famous for getting into multiple segments. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's do this. Well, pick the most What they find is sometimes that the one they like to do the most is not the most profitable for them. And you find that you've grown that business, hey, my revenue's growing, but your profit's not growing. So you're really not creating any more value. So find what's the most profitable thing that you do more of that. Eliminate the complexity in your business, keep it simple, and try to figure out a way, which is difficult. It's not easy, what I'm saying. All the business owners that I work with, they're still the chief salespeople in their companies, and they're running $15, $20 million a year companies. So
make it to where your business operates without you, because if somebody is looking to purchase your business, they're not looking to buy a job. They're looking to buy something that works and generates income without having them be there on the day-to-day. Is there nothing else that, other than making the way their business runs without it, is there nothing else that somebody can do to make their business more valuable?
It's difficult. Again, the first thing is the profits. The second thing would be figure out a way where you can create new profitable segments. So going to find a new customer is difficult. And you don't want to be taking these shots without really knowing if you've got a reasonable chance of success. So what I'm saying is go back to your client and say, hey, you know what? I'm providing this particular service for you. Let's say in my case, I am doing a monthly financial review meeting. I learned this the hard way, by the way, what I'm about to tell you. I assumed that I did not realize that customers do not like to talk to their bankers. Business owners do not like to talk to their bank. I was flabbergasted. And I worked in a bank for 10 years, Randolph. And this did not hit me until 2008 during that financial crisis. And I was able to start a new business line called Bank Relations. How to talk, because nobody wrote a book about it either. How to talk to your banker, how to manage a bank relationship. So by the same token, go back to your client and say, you know what, I'm providing whatever. I'm your financial planner, or I'm your HR consultant. What else could I do to add value to you? So like one of my outsourced consultants, one of the things that they did is they created a recruiting segment, but not in the same way as a typical recruiter. They don't actually go get the candidates. They make sure that you have the infrastructure in place to go recruit the candidates. Who's putting the ads out? Who's reviewing the resumes? Who's parsing them down? And that was a valuable service that clients were willing to pay for, because they didn't have time to go do all that stuff. So find something that's adjacent to what you do that can and be at least as profitable as what you're doing, if not more. And then there's
vertical integration.
Yeah, in a sense, yes. So find customers that can spend more in every transaction. That can make your business more valuable. Find customers that can buy more. Instead of buying once a year from you, they buy a couple times a year from you. So those are the most simple and effective ways to make your business more valuable. And be really careful if you try to go outside of your comfort zone just because you got a couple dollars in your pocket that may be yours or maybe borrowed, and you think that you're going to go do something new. It would be like me trying to say, you know what, I'm going to go do what Randolph does. Well, I don't know. I don't have the experience that Randolph does. I might be able to speak the same language that Randolph does, but I don't have the experience. I don't have the licenses. I don't understand how the game works. And just because I have a couple of dollars in my pocket does not mean I'm going to be successful. So stick as close to your core as you can.
Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something.
Oh, there we go. Yes, sir. Uh-huh.
Okay, so I'm a business owner, and I'm growing or I want to grow, are there no common growth mistakes that I should identify and avoid?
Yeah, so I would say, how's your business doing? Is it profitable? And then are you happy with the level of profitability? By the way, we live in the land of those statistics I was talking about in the beginning, right? You could benchmark your business. So we have these services in our country that give you the statistics. What should a business like Randolph's look like from a financial perspective? What should its gross profit margin be? What should its net profit margin be? So you benchmark your business against your competitors, and that'll tell you exactly where you stand. And it's very cost effective. So for example, if you're a manufacturer and you're doing between 1 and 10 million, that's the cool thing is that these statistics are segmented by sales. They're called the NICS codes. Used to be SIC codes, right? So use that now. Don't take it as gospel, like I told you, because you don't know exactly what's going on, but just use that as a measure. If you're doing 1 to 10 million in revenue in this particular NAICS code, is your gross profit margin the same as that benchmark, or is it better? If it's better, why is it better? If you can identify that, then that'll give you the answer on what to do more of. If your gross profit margin is less than your benchmark, why? What are you doing that you can't meet what everybody else is doing? So these little things. And then I don't know your business. You'd have to teach me your business model, right? How can you, A, get more clients, get them to buy more, as we said, or get them to spend more in each transaction, or figure out another service or product that you could provide that they would find value in and be willing to pay?
Yeah, it's one of those things that might be easier said than done. When first attempting it, they might run into what they would call a failure. But the more you're in business, if you didn't know it before, you eventually learn that failure isn't the opposite of success, but a part of success. How do you help the people that you work with accept failure and use it to fail forward and build resiliency?
Yeah, that's a concept. It's called failing forward. It means do not beat yourself up about a failure. A failure is actually a learning experience. I think where we get into the part where you're beating yourself up is you might have taken on too much risk. You might have bet the farm, bet all the marbles. So you have to look and see, how much am I willing to risk? Randolph's risk tolerance might be a lot higher than Manny's. So use it as a learning experience. Figure out how much you can risk. So let me give some examples. And this is all coming from things that my mentors and teachers have taught me and what I've learned over my career. Try to keep 2 months of expenses in the bank in cash. That's your target. Okay? Because 2 months will give you the peace of mind you need in case something comes out of left field. You won't have to go to the bank with your hat in hand asking for a loan. And by the way, the bank is not going to lend you money because you just came there and showed a loss. And people always say, but Manny, that's okay. I've been with my bank 25 years. I'll go over there and ask, they'll give me a couple of dollars. I'm like, no, they won't. Now when they see your P&L showing you lose money, you've lost money. No one wants to lend money into the loser. They don't know how they're going to get their money back if you're not profitable. So that would be number one. Keep 2 months, and I'm talking about the business now. And then all the other folk that are financial planners, they recommend personally you keep 6 months in cash as a reserve. So that's what you need to have so you can have peace of mind and you can have reaction time. You don't want to get into a situation where something happens and you can't make payroll, right? That's why a lot of the things I say, people are like, oh, you're too conservative. You know what I mean? You're risk averse. You're this, you're that. It's like, nah, I've seen somebody not be able to make payroll. It did not end very well. So don't let it get down to that point. Leave yourself some cushion, and then you make the decision. If you got 20 grand in the bank, are you willing to part? If you lost 5,000, would it make you cry? You know what I mean? Figure out what your risk tolerance is. Could your business survive? And that'll help you get your own personal level of risk.
Oh yeah, it's easy for someone to be like, oh yeah, man, you're too conservative, and meanwhile you're that veteran that just got back from Vietnam, and you saw the blood in the streets, right? And you're trying to make sure that doesn't come back to the home soil, right? And speaking of not being able to make payroll, even if you are making payroll, it's not always the easiest to get your employees on the same page. How can an employer set clear goals with their employees that helps them improve the efficiency and reduce the excessive overhead to make it to where this business owner can operate freely with options?
Oh yeah, you're getting into my favorite topics now. They're like, why is the finance guy, why is he concerned about the way I treat my employees and getting into the HR lane? Because we can't grow anything without a qualified team of people. It starts and ends with our people, right? Mm-hmm. So here's some things that I learned along the way. Sometimes we do not give clear directions to people, okay? And it's like, you're a manager, let's say, and they come to you and say, Randolph, take care of Manny. I'm the new guy. Well, what does that mean, take care of him? We're not. So the point is, and my recommendation is, give everybody in your company 3 outcomes that you want every month from them. I don't care who they are. 3 outcomes. Randolph, these are the 3 outcomes I want from you every month to consider your performance successful. That eliminates the disconnect between what the employer wants the employee to do and what the employee thinks, because we don't communicate it. I come into the office and Randolph's my boss. He's smiling at me. I'm smiling at him. Good morning. I'm all happy. He just gave me a raise last month. My bonus is coming up. I'm going to my desk like it's all good. And Randolph is like, what the heck is that guy doing? Because you haven't communicated it to me. That causes a disconnect. But if you would tell me, hey, when you're over in that warehouse, make sure you've got those guys making sure that we have less than 1% shrinkage in there. That's a direct outcome-based, polite way to put it. Not take care of the inventory. What does that mean? So give 3 outcomes that you want to consider the employee's performance successful. And that is going to do wonders. And then listen to what your employees are saying. When you're running the business as the owner, you've got 100 things going on. You can't possibly know where the mice are running, right? You don't know everything. Listen to what your employees have to say and tell them thank you. A simple thank you. Because what I found was that employees leave because they don't feel valued. And you're not going to make them feel valued because you hand them another 10 grand. It's a fascinating thing. The other piece to this was overhead. You got to be real careful. Unless you have contracts in your business. So you have a business, you're doing, let's just say $5 million a year. You've got 5 $1 million a year contracts. So when I walk in there, we know exactly how much money's coming in the door. And we have a better chance of meeting Randolph's objectives because we can manage the expenses. When you're in a transaction-based business model, you don't know how much revenue you're really going to do. So you have to really be careful with overhead because it's real easy to sign up for a new expense, real easy to go and get a new lease on an office, right? More rent. Real easy to buy everybody new computers. Real easy to take on this overhead. And then you're running to try to get the revenue to pay for all this stuff. And that's why we go back to your first point about bootstrapping. It's a lot easier if you keep control of your overhead It'd be a lot easier for you because we got to take into consideration your mental health. You're the person, and the buck stops with you. You know, if you can't make payroll, your employee is going to go find another place to work. Your employee cannot afford to have a paycheck missed. So we need to be making sure that you're good. So it'll help your mental health, knowing that you're not chasing revenue to pay for all this overhead that you really didn't need.
Oh yeah, and that's sage advice, and I imagine that for a lot of the people that you work for, you're the voice of God, right? Typically, whether they complain about having to meet for an hour once a month, I imagine they still do it because you've shown your value. And because you've shown your value and that you share so much information and best practices with them, I imagine that the people that you refer to them are essentially locked in. How do you look at the different opportunities and different people that you refer to them? How do you gauge that this is this practitioner is a good person for me to refer, or do you avoid making referrals in order to keep your
name? Thank you for the compliment. First of all, thank you. You know, I've worked very hard to be an A player, and I want to refer other A players to my customers. I do not accept any commissions. I never have. So if Randolph is a financial planner and I meet him and I look him in the eye and I think he's good at what he does, and I talk to a couple of his clients, and I got a good feeling about it, that's it. Come on in, meet my client, and let them see if they like you. It doesn't matter. My recommendation only goes so far, right? Mm-hmm. So I want the best. I want my clients surrounded with other A players in the other disciplines. And they don't say Manny brought Randolph because Randolph is skinning them all 10%, right? You were brought there as a referral because you're an A player.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because when you got the referrer, the referee, and the person getting the referral, the person that's the most vulnerable in that scenario is the referrer. So yeah, you definitely want to make sure that you're connecting people to the right people.
And then my hot button is you got to keep it simple. Okay, I don't care how smart you are and how many degrees that you've earned and all that good stuff. God bless you, respect. But you got to be able to explain everything in 25 words or less. Okay, if you can do that, then it's on. Because people I found do not like complexity. And somebody taught me this. And it was actually a billionaire family that I work with that had operations all over the world. They couldn't go to all their locations in a year. Physically impossible. So I asked them, I said, how do you manage, this empire? And you can't go to every location. Keep in mind, I come from a Greek family that they had to have their hand in everything, right? The operation was tightly run. There was no such thing as delegating or anything. So I'm coming from this environment. I'm meeting these wealthy people, and I'm like, how do you do it? And they answered. They said, you gotta communicate in 25 words or less. And I was just amazed, Randolph. So that stuck with me. You got to keep it simple. Keep it simple, and that's appreciated and respected.
Oh yeah, I think they call that the KISS method. Keep it simple. Some people say stupid, some people say student, but yes, simplicity is valuable. And a lot of people believe that the more complex something is, the more valuable something is. But as you go up and higher in the different echelon, the more simple something is, the more valuable it is.
Yeah, well said.
What books should our audience read?
Oh, I got to be selfish on that. You got to read my books. I broke through and became an author, which I never expected. I wrote a book called Ultimate Profit Management, Maximizing Profitability as You Grow Your Business. It is a fun book. It is not a textbook. These are all the lessons I learned from watching, working, and earning while I learned. why did some companies, they would grow 5-10% a year, their top line, they would be profitable, didn't have too much debt, maybe some vehicles, maybe some machines, depending on the business. They were doing fine. And why did this other company over here trying to grow 50 to 100% a year? Oh, it didn't work. We added this overhead, but we didn't get that contract. Why do they fail? So I took all those lessons that I learned, which is that the tortoise wins the race. And I stuck them in this book. When should I hire, right? How fast should I hire? What is the reasonable growth goal? What should I do about technology? Because technology is very important. Technology has enabled us to become more efficient. I couldn't do my job without technology, right? With these tools that we're using now, with StreamYard, right? We're now in 2 different states doing this presentation, right? It's the same thing with my customers. So anyway, I wrote all these lessons in a book and it got published. So I highly recommend that. You can find it on Amazon. And then I actually had one more book I wanted to write, and I did that too. It's called The Small Business Perseverance Guide, How to Make Money During Challenging Times. And I had, I watched how everybody operated and what happened during 2008, and I took all those lessons. So the first book is How Do I Bootstrap This Thing and Make It Profitable and Sustainable? And the second book is How Do I Act to Preserve and Make My Business Sustainable when the tough times hit?
Sounds like some good books that everybody needs to cop and read. What is the description of the preferred person or company that somebody listening should refer you to?
Sure, good question. I am looking to work with business owners that are doing about $1 million minimum a year in revenue. So they're billing about 80 grand a month. And they want financial clarity. They feel that business is growing, but they don't feel like it is as profitable as it can be. That's what I'm looking for. I want to come in there and work with that business owner to learn their business model and bring them financial clarity and help them to improve their profits and cash flow and feel good about the decisions they're making. Doesn't matter what industry, because that financial statement we keep talking about, income statement, balance sheet, and statement of cash flows, it's the same financial statement for me as it is for Randolph's business, but it tells a different story. That is the cool thing. And everything you need to know is in there. And that's what I got taught, was how to analyze that thing.
Oh yeah, I just heard this today that somebody said, they said a financial statement is like a bikini. What it shows you is great, but what it conceals is vital.
That is awesome. I'm going to have to use that with Copyright Randolph.
Oh yeah, it was somebody.
What's the last piece? What it conceals is what?
Vital.
That is awesome. Yeah, thank you for schooling me on that one.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. Is there not a question that I didn't ask you that I should have?
No, this has been fantastic. Like I said, I'm honored to be on your show. And thank you for letting me share, the lessons that I learned from my teachers and mentors.
Absolutely. One more time, let everybody know who you are, what do you do, and how they can get in touch.
Sure. Manny Skevofilax. I am an outsourced chief financial officer, and you can find more information about me on my website, which is PORTALCFO.com.
Thank you, Manny. This has been another exciting and informative episode of the Entreprenudist Podcast, a place to hear real entrepreneurs and business owners bear it all. I am your host, Randolph Love III. And remember, if you're listening to us on the audio platforms, make sure you check out the show notes. There you'll see more about Manny, and you'll also be able to click the link to watch the video and observe our handsome and immaculate ebony and ivory faces in your places. Until next time, don't play with it, stay with it until you make pay with it. This is the Entreprenudist Podcast, signing off.